So I'm Hanna Sinare. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Stockholm Resilience Centre at Stockholm University, and I will share some preliminary results from my ongoing research on perspectives from young people in rural areas of Burkina Faso on opportunities and constraints for finding an occupation there. I will also try to summarize some aspects emerging as central for effective inclusion of rural youth in Burkina Faso from my work, and some good examples that I came across in my work. So just to give you the context of my research project, this is running over 4 years, so I'm about halfway into it, and it's funded through a mobility grant, so I've been away 16 months, 4 months in 2018 at the Institute of Development Studies in the UK, in a group working on similar issues in other African countries, and they did a couple of background papers for the IFAD report that we heard about recently. And then 1 year at 1 year at Institut des Sciences et Sociétés, a social science research institute under the National Research Centre in Burkina Faso. So while in Burkina Faso, I did quite a lot of field work in 4 villages in 3 municipalities. And as parts of the country are pretty insecure at the moment, that limited my selection of sites. So they are close to the capital and close to the second largest city. So I think Burkina Faso is an interesting case, and the broader Sahel region as well, as a large proportion of the population are occupied in agriculture, and a large proportion of the population are young. It also has a highly variable rainfall, and a lot of the agricultural production is rain-fed, and also a hotspot for future temperature increase and effects of climate change. To give you an overview of what I have done in the field. So first, to understand youth perspectives in the case study villages, I have done focus groups with one with young women and one with young men in each of the villages to start off the discussion and discuss and rank current occupations and what they aspire to do, and also discuss migration and other links to other places, such as where are the important markets for their produce, and are there employment opportunities that are important for them somewhere. Then I did between 10 and 40 interviews with young people, individual interviews on their current occupations and how they got started with that, their education, and also how they exchange knowledge and information around their occupations, and their aspirations for life 10 years from now, and what they see as first steps towards those aspirations. And to understand the broader context for rural youth in Burkina Faso, I have collected policy and planning documents on youth and the rural sector and employment for analysis, and then I have done interviews with key informants at ministries and producer organizations. So some key preliminary results. Almost all of the interviews are involved in agriculture in some way, either as their own activity and or with their parents or spouse. And most of them prefer to leave agriculture if they can. They see it as hard work and low yields, and it's also a high risk, as a lot of it is rain-fed, and they perceive it as increasingly erratic rainfall. So it's very high risk for yield loss. irrigated vegetable production that you can do during the dry season. So it's one rainy season per year. And then during the dry season, if you have access to water, you can do irrigated vegetable production that can give higher income. But it also has risk. For example, if a lot of producers produce the same thing at the same time, you can go to the market and sell at really low price, or even not get the produce sold at all. So animal production is perceived as more attractive, that you can gain more income from it as compared to crop production. And it's used as savings to invest later in other activities as well. Commercial activities, to have a little shop or to move around and sell things, that's perceived as more attractive, that it can give more income. But the young people who have been to school, and that's the majority of them now, it's a change as compared to the parent generation. They aspire to, and are expected to, from their parents and families, rather to be employed, for example, as teachers or in health services or as police or custom agents. So what they express in the interviews is that they want to have an income sufficient for themselves and to take care of a family and to help the parents. And to achieve that, based on agriculture, there are multiple issues and challenges. First, the access to land, and that's perceived as an issue by some, but not by others, who say that it's not really a problem for me to get access to land. But it's much more important the ability to afford inputs, fertilizers and pesticides, for example, to get a good yield. Access to water during the dry season is important to be able to get more income from the vegetable production. But you don't only need to have access to a plot close to a reservoir. You also need to be able to have the means to pump the water and have the means to buy fuel to the pump at the right time and sufficiently often to get a good yield. There is an issue of road quality and means of transportation to the market, and lack of possibilities to store and process produce to be able to sell it when the prices are higher, or to a higher price or higher value products, and the market competition, as I mentioned before. So some areas to address for effective inclusion of rural youth in Burkina Faso. I think one important thing is the status and perception of farmers and other occupations within the agri-food system, that it must be perceived more as a job. And related to that is the educational system and the types of job that prepares for. I think there is a legacy from the colonial time of education, the school system preparing for public administration jobs, and that doesn't work today when most of the young go to school, and it doesn't necessarily prepare for more of an entrepreneurial thinking. There is also the question of insurances, as there is such a high risk. Could there be insurance systems that could help at times of crop failure? And also, if the status could be higher, if it's perceived more as a job, if there are more social security, like pensions, also for farmers and other jobs in the agri-food system. There is an issue of communication between young people and the extension services. So in the interviews, most young people say that they communicate with their families and maybe friends around their agricultural practices, but quite few say that they interact with the extension services. They say them, yeah, they come to our village, but we are not invited, or I don't go there. Some of them do. There are examples of who says that they go. But from the other side, the extension services said that we are happy to interact with young people. We want to do that. But the way we can't invite everyone, so we pass through the village representatives, and then how that information is then passed on may be an issue. There is the question of access to credit and at a reasonable interest rate, and that it's very difficult for young people to have the guarantees that might be necessary for that. But even if that is present, that there are institutions for loans, and that you have reasonable interest rates and solve the question of guarantees. Young people also need to have the confidence and competence to use that loan to invest in their businesses and improve them. And when I ask young people, most of them say that no, I never tried to get a loan. I never thought about that. I don't dare to do that because I'm afraid of not being able to pay back. And another area, I think, is thinking more of a food system or about the wider rural economy. So, where can value be added in food processing and marketing, for example? Can such jobs be created closer in rural areas, closer to the villages? So some good examples that I came across. Okay, just shortly, very brief. The National Federation of Farmers Organizations, they have a mentorship program running for a few years, and of course it only touches very few people, less than 20 per year, but it is all the farmers that share knowledge and contacts with younger farmers. Extension agents describe it as more farmers now can read and write. They can support them to document practices, and so they can plan ahead for their farm to improve the business. There are some examples of successful entrepreneurs in agriculture described in the booklet or the book, but most of them have a university degree. So it seems to be a gap between the villages and then where young people don't really see opportunities in agriculture and the ones seeing opportunities in agriculture. So I will end on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hanna. And I once again wonder if there are any questions or such from the audience. Yes, we have one over there. And please also present yourself.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Julian Roux from the Global Water Partnership. So our colleagues in West Africa are working a lot on youth inclusion, youth engagement for improved water resources management, climate resilience, livelihood improvement, both in terms of national governance and then in field projects. And I have two questions. One is if you can share a little bit some findings maybe you have from your analysis at the national level, if anything in particular came out already of this analysis. And the second thing is whether or not the question of the security situation and the worsening of the security situation came up in your discussions with young people in the field. It hasn't come up in your key findings, so I'm wondering, is it a big concern for them or not really? Thank you.
Okay. So for the national, you meant the analysis of the policy documents? No, it's not done yet, so I can't share. I still have 2 years, the project. For the second question, as I have been to areas that are not really affected by the security situation, and I did most of the interviews in March, April, and May last year. So since then it has also degraded, but not really where I worked. So I met a village representative in November, and he said that, yeah, the years were not so good this year, but in any case, we hope to be able to eat it in peace. So he said that, like, the positive side is that in where they live, it's secure at the moment, at least. But definitely in other parts of the country, people are leaving their fields and their livestock, and there is towns with a lot of internally displaced people. So it's definitely affecting young as older people. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hanna. A big applause, and also, of course, Asiani guys. Thank you.
Thank you.